So hello everybody. We have a one-off meeting today to go over the CNI aspects, so that we could not cover in the last meeting. So this is mostly related to CNI status, and also Robert, if you are here, it would be great to go over your document about the Sidecar lifecycle management. So in the first part, Tim, I saw you join. So in the first part, it would be great if you could take the lead and talk us about the various items you added in the agenda. And then in the second part, we'll hand over to Robert to go over his document. Is
Sure.
that good?
Yeah.
Great. So please feel free to share your screen. I shared it just to show the agenda.
Okay. Can you guys see my screen yet?
Yep.
Okay. So just at the beginning of the meeting, we want to just knock off the plan for getting through some logistic items for the CNI repo and the kind of 1.1 alpha readiness type items. So I created a issue tracker in the CNI repo to just list out everything that at a high level is that needs to be done to get on the track towards getting a release ready. So the main problem right now we're having is after the Istio ecosystem move, a number of the folks that are in the owner's file don't have permission to assign issues or to approve PRs and merge PRs, and it could be mostly related to the Circle CI hookup or the DCO check. So we need to figure that out so that we can unblock a lot of the PRs that are pending to merge.
So Tim, actually, I think a bigger problem is that the repo doesn't seem to be properly linked with Circle CI. There's a number of jobs that aren't able to be run. So that's
right.
Almost a bigger problem than the actual ability to merge.
So
yeah, I think it's linked together, right? Probably.
On the Circle CI, I was able to on my fork circle work perfectly, and I believe Shriram added the enable it for the master. I was just trying to check if it works, but that's easily solvable. DSO or that check. Do you want? Yes.
We noticed that your PR, the job ran, the Circle CI jobs ran, but none of the other jobs, even though we resubmitted some this morning, the Circle CI run. So I'm not sure exactly what's going on there, but it was only your specific PR that was able to run Circle CI. The other ones weren't, even though they came after yours.
Okay, I'll check. There are some settings. Unfortunately, Shriram and Louis are doing some work with Louis to make sure that we sort it out.
Do they need to be added to the Istio organization?
No.
CI or?
We'll see. I don't know.
Okay.
That's weird.
So the Istio CNI repo should be added to the Circle CI project.
That's what Shriram did last night.
Okay, but I didn't
or
see.
at least that's what he said he did.
Okay.
Whether it was effective or not.
I think it's solvable. I mean, it's we can take it on the Slack channel and discuss it because it's an iterative process, and I don't.
Yeah, we'll get it resolved.
We'll get it resolved probably today or tomorrow. It's not a problem. That's and I believe the Docker Hub image. Let me check if it was created, but we should start to see the Docker Hub, the Hub images showing up in.
Yeah, so Kostin, I made some comments on the submission you made, the PR you made. Basically, it looks like because you used a VM image in the nightly job, it didn't have Helm, so one of the steps failed.
Okay.
Comments.
Okay. Well, as I said, it's an iterative process. It takes 2 or 3 iterations to get it right.
Yep.
So for the owner's issue, then like, can you submit a PR to fix that, and then we'll get somebody from?
I think it's a repo settings thing. I think it looks to me maybe that it kept some of the settings that were there when it was Istio ecosystem, and it wasn't paying attention. I don't think it's actually paying attention to the owner's file. So I think that just is a knob that needs to be set on the Istio. CNI.
Okay, so that's an admin, right? That could look into that. I see Lynn just joined. I'm not sure. Lynn, do you have like admin?
Yeah, I was going to chime in. I believe I said everybody has right access to the CNI repository. So everybody in the owner file has right access already.
Okay. So like I'm in the owner file and I can't put labels on issues. I can't assign issues. I can't, and I don't have a squash and merge grayed out button and stuff.
Can I say a quick question here? What do we want? I mean, do we want to keep using the owner's file, or do we want to use the GitHub permissions? Because this is a much smaller repository than Istio.
Yeah.
Focus not only on relatively small code base, and do we want to have all the checks and owners and prow and other stuff that we do in the main repository, or can we leave without?
Yeah, so basically what I did was I created a CNI hacker team, and inside of the team, there are 8 members, which is what Tim, I think you wanted to be the initial folks in the owner's file. And then that team has write permission to the CNI repository. I mean, I could try to maybe make you, Tim, or maybe 1 or 2 other guys to be admin of that repository. That might be easier. So we can try testing permission a little bit more.
Yeah, I think maybe I don't know if anybody else can do like labels or something, right?
And Tim, as I showed you the other day, I'm able to add labels.
Okay.
Of course, I'm not able to try to merge anything because of the problem with the jobs running, but it does look like I have more permissions than you. Not sure why.
Tim, I think there is a problem with your username in specific, because I'm not able to see you on the list of reviewers, like when I try to assign you. So.
Oh, so maybe we put the wrong team in there.
Maybe it's a typo in the username.
Could someone admit was your admin for this? Since I'm on call and.
Yeah, so Tim, we sent you an invitation, but you didn't accept the invitation. That may be why. It says 1 pending and it was from you.
Okay, cool. So I'll accept that. Okay, thanks. Yeah, and
there was a question in chat as well about, do we need DCO anymore, or do we want DCO?
What is DCO?
DCO is something where only commits with some signatures. You need to do some extra step when you submit. We don't have it on Istio.
You mean the CLA?
Not CLA, it's another one when you sign the, you need to sign the whatever.
So in the commit, you see this signed off by.
Yeah, that's something that that Envoy has, but Istio didn't have, and I think Sriram added to this.
I think it should be consistent with Istio.
Yeah, Istio doesn't have it, I think.
Yeah, I think Sriram added it because earlier this repository was under Istio ecosystem, and now there was no CLA checks there. But now since it's under Istio and we have CLA, so we can remove it, I think.
Okay.
So I think Sriram is here, so I'm
yeah. You should just remove that the DCO bot, because this if it's under Istio, then you have to accept the Google CLA. I mean, since it was outside, it was like no longer under Google CLA. That's all.
Okay, so that's one result.
So who's going to remove Costin? You also, or Sriram?
I'm not admin yet, so one of the admins.
Sriram, I think you have to remove it.
Yep. Okay, I'll remove it.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, so that takes care of the permissions, DCO checks. Do we want to keep using the LGTM thing, or do we just go with a simpler approve from GitHub?
Either way is fine with me. I don't know the pros and cons of. I mean,
the pros for LGTM and the other process, if it grows into something as complicated as Istio, then and multiple teams doing multiple stuff, then probably we want LGTM. But the approval obviously is easier and cleaner and.
Yeah, let's start with the approval and get the ball rolling, and we'll add
Well,
later.
that's something that people working on it probably need to.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think I'm fine with approve. If John or Vanil, do you have any? Or Robert, if you guys have any comments, speak up.
No, I mean, we don't have a lot of experience with the different approaches since we didn't have all the permissions. So I would defer to Kostin or Andres' opinion of what's the best way forward.
Just do without the ProBot and so on. I mean, it's too much overhead for the small repository. Just, I mean, stick with the usual GitHub thing and approve, and like make sure every PR has at least one approval, and that's about it.
Yeah, I agree. And when it gets so big that we need more, we can figure it out.
Sure, sounds good.
Yep, sounds good.
Yeah, and just so you guys know, I created the CNI admin group. So Tim and John, I put you guys there as admin. So hopefully that would enable you to do more things within your team.
Could you add Kostin in there too?
Okay, will do.
Thank you.
And also make sure you add John McDowell, because he's also working on CNI. He's in the meeting too.
I think he's in the owners.
Yeah, we added him to the owners.
Okay.
Yeah, so these are the admin group. You also have a writer hacker group.
Actually, we didn't add him to the owners because I couldn't find his
GitHub
ID in Istio.
So John, yeah, if you could post your GitHub. I think you might have had to do the CLA still. Last time we talked.
Okay, perfect.
Okay. So for the other sort of readiness items, so Kostin's got the PR for the nightly job to push the Docker IO. I was going to try and talk to Andy about from the test and release team about what we should be doing for hooking up into whether we should hook a build of candidate releases as a specific job in Circle CI, or how that should work, I guess, because I've been working with him on the Helm chart stuff, and he's got there's a release job in Istio, or a release script, and I'm not sure how that's triggered, but so there's some logistics I think we need to work out there.
That's for the release, yes. For the release, they will need to make some changes to the shell script that is building the release. Technically, so Louis, do you want to have this included in the release, or it's okay to have it as a standalone? Install the CNI as a completely standalone operation, and then.
I don't think there's anything preventing it from being standalone, right?
Nothing is preventing, and it's in a way it's simple, a la carte. Plus.
I would almost keep it standalone. Maybe we might have to do something similar to what we do with Envoy to be able to pin a specific version of it.
But either way, we want to have the artifacts, hosted. Like, we want to tag the repo, have the artifacts hosted it on the GitHub, and Andy's got all that stuff.
That part is independent. I mean, having a release and publishing it to the official Istio repositories, that's one thing. And definitely Andy can do it because that's the official build with the keys and approval and whatever.
Right, which
but
we should do.
In terms of we already kind of have a big mess with all the options and values.yaml and too many things bundled together. And this one is decoupled enough and has a clean interface with the rest of Istio. My personal preference would be to keep it separated, at least for 1.1 and maybe 1.2. And when we find a need, we can figure out how to spaghettize it.
But this has to be installed before Istio, right?
Not necessarily, actually. It's perfectly possible to install it, and I believe we can make sure that it can be installed independently.
So
actually, with setting of a few. Tim's been able to set this up with, setting a few environmental variables and a few home variables that are consumed via the environment. It can be installed as part of Istio.
So it's already merged.
Right.
Yeah, that part is merged in 1.1 actually. For you enable a Helm and Helm template flag or Helm install flag, and it'll generate
it will pull the whole thing, yes.
Yeah, exactly. Pull in the whole chart and fill in the values, and then it'll remove the init container from the automatic sidecar injector config map. So that's all there in the Istio repo, and it's linked.
I saw that it is there, but is it what we want?
Well,
I think that's what we want, because the risk is if we don't give it up as part of the release, people will install Istio without the CNI because they will probably not know about it, and then they will run into the same issues, right?
No,
so if we give it as part of the Helm installation, it's going to be clear, right? Whether we turn it on or off by default, maybe that's another discussion.
Istio install has about 100 options. Having something part of it doesn't at this point is not making it more visible. It's making it less visible, because among the 100 names and Citadel, Gali, and things that people doesn't know.
And we make it default.
Right, but I mean, I think
definitely not the
yeah. So that's what we want to do, is make it possible for somebody to do an install of Istio that when they install CNI afterwards, it works.
Exactly.
Now, I think it's okay to put some options in the 1.1 Helm to facilitate that.
Yeah.
They're going to be pretty opaque, right? They're not going to be part of the mainline usage.
Yeah.
But they can be documented with a CNI. If we tell people, hey, if you want to do CNI, you're going to do this and then this.
Exactly, and
definitely. So it's not going to be linked with if that workflow is not going to be linked together, right? It'll be you have to install Istio, and then you have to do this to your Istio installation, and use the Istio CNI Helm chart by itself
Yes.
So we can document that. That'll be the harder to use model. But if you're really trying to trial this, the quick knob is just turn on CNI on the Helm line, and that's an opt-in on your cluster installation.
Right, exactly. So basically have it as part of the Helm. I don't have to read documentation to enable this, because the Helm charts, that toggle is going to also change my init container configuration for automatic sidecar injection. So that's a big bonus for me. Also, I'm sure, Tim, I would have to go to istio.io somewhere to figure that out, which I would rather not to.
I'm okay with Helm changing, as long as we make it very clear that this is an experimental feature. It's not even an alpha feature.
What I'm thinking is users will have Istio installed. I mean, again, CNI still has some difficulties in some cluster. I mean, you need to know how that is in JKE or whatever because it has some different options. What I was thinking is a safer flow would be people install Istio normally, or they already have installed 1.03. They upgrade to 1.1, and then they want to move to CNI.
Oh, they could do that. They just do a Helm upgrade and then have this flag enabled to true. That's all they need to do. So they could install Istio 1.1 and then have it by default, which is what we're going to ship. And then once they want to explore this option, they do Helm upgrade. Hey, by the way, they set the CNI to true. That's all they need.
I'm looking for as safe as possible. I mean, minimize the risk, basically, because when you have something in production, you kind of don't want to have stuff suddenly change. So if you just install the CNI plugin, I believe it will do nothing at all if the other option is in there, because we detect if the injector has Iptable container. So then they can have a namespace, switch it off, or change the injection gradually. Upgrade. So basically, they can have a safer upgrade where they kind of start using CNI gradually. I mean, deployment by deployment, and if they see a problem, they can roll back. I mean, I'm trying to figure out if we can have a safe, not necessarily easy option.
Well,
this is interesting. How will this interact? Because did anybody test with both the injector and CNI?
I believe the CNI is looking at the pod, and if it has the initializer, it's
no. So yeah, I mean,
it's independent.
Sort of. Well, I mean, so the way we've made it, it's sort of the assumption that if you're using the sidecar injection flag, or you've already injected a sidecar in the container, it doesn't check and see if there's a init container there right now. I mean, we could add that, but it assumes it's the only thing doing the redirect Iptable stuff. So,
but it's, I mean, the scripts are in the. I mean, it doesn't matter how many times you call them. They will do the same thing, so it's safe.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so it wouldn't really kill anything from the script point of view, and from the init container point of view. So I think coexisting is probably works okay. We haven't really tested that, I don't think. But I think if we want to have that workflow, we should probably have an issue where we document how, and at least document how to make that, least impacting for that workflow.
Yeah, I can test this because I'm very interested in this kind of stuff where production user can adapt the plugin kind of. Okay. Because we have people who use Istio in production and will upgrade to 1.1, but I'm not sure they will be willing to take risks unless they have kind of safety net. And
right. So is there any plan to enable this to do from the Sidecar manual injection? Because that's the less impactful way for people to try this instead of enable auto.
But it works for both. For the manual Sidecar injection, the only key is you have to tell the manual to use the actual config map, not the embedded logic to do the injection. Because if you use the config map, the home parameters would have upgraded the config map to remove the init containers. So you just tell Istio CTL to use the config map, not the embedded logic.
Yeah, what if I don't want to use, I don't want to modify my config map because everybody else was happy with the existing configuration, and maybe one of the engineers in the organization is tasked to try the CNI feature.
You can tell Istio CTL to use a custom config map. So
so it's through customer. So I think we probably want to provide some doc on that too, just because that's the least impactful way for people to try this without, changing their global configuration on the server side.
Yeah. In fact, if you don't give it a config map in the Istio CTL command, it'll use the embedded. So the sort of default behavior for the normal user would be to just use the embedded logic.
I'm not sure this is entire. I believe Mandar made a change, so the embedded is only used in tests. I believe.
Okay, well, I wasn't aware of that change, but yeah, maybe.
Maybe I'm wrong. I mean, I don't know, but the intent was to deprecate the one that is built in because it's out of sync. We didn't remove it when he did the change because it was breaking all the tests.
So there are so many ifs and else into all this logic here about the installation, and I'm getting actually mixed input whether we do like the CNI after the Istio installation or as part. It's not clear what people prefer here.
I think both are necessary. I mean, for some cluster, for OpenShift or some other, or for a fresh install, you probably want to go with install by default.
So the current, for a fresh install, the current logic, the CNI is not enabled. You have to actually take a step to enable.
Right. We're not enabling CNI by default.
Of course
not. No, but still, when you do the first installation, you can set. You can choose to enable it. So do we go with this option?
And also you need to specify.
Can people show thumbs up, down, or talk if that is not good? So if I have a fresh installation, I want to enable CNI. I put Helm install something minus whatever option. CNI enabled.
Yes. That's the only option we have, right?
We do that.
So let's do that.
Second, that's one. Okay.
And also you need to specify if you're on JK or not, because apparently there is one environment different, and so you need to specify if you're installing on JK or not.
Okay, so there might be other parameters, but that's the master one, right? The master feature. And then the second part, if I already have a cluster with Istio installed and I want to enable CNI, I'm able to do that as well, right? But am I able to do it on selective for just some namespaces or a node, or it's going to be for the entire cluster?
You're able to exclude namespaces, so you have some ability to do it per namespace.
But it's not really working as we usually expect, because if you modify the config map to not add the initializer, then those namespaces will be kind of stored.
Yeah, it will depend on what exactly, Costin. It will depend on what some of your other options are, whether there might be some gotcha or two.
But we'll fix. I mean, that's kind of small things we can easily improve.
So I guess the key thing here, because we've so far been focusing on the new installation one, for better or worse.
Yeah.
So I think the key thing here is, what are the 2 use cases that we ought to make sure we get right, or 3 use cases? Make sure we get those right, and then we can iterate. It sounds like we want an upgrade one and a fresh install one, right?
A fresh install one, and if possible, an upgrade one.
Right, and for upgrade, we need to actually define what's the functionality. Do people expect everything will be switched to CNI, or the new pods will be using CNI, or what? And do they expect, are they required to change the config maps? Like all the steps have to be documented, right, on Istio.io?
Well,
yeah, so we would have to explain the behavior in an upgrade, and for like 0 downtime for your existing pods. Obviously there's nothing going to happen to them, so that would be, they would have the same exact permissions and all that stuff, and they would.
But I would say this is lower priority. I mean, we can ship the first option, which is just fresh install like we have today, and then incrementally try different scenarios. And
actually, Costin, I mean, yeah, I agree. I agree with you on the priority, but I don't think it's really going to be that hard to have an upgrade process too. As Tim was saying, we just haven't really tested it. So I think if we actually sit down and put our minds to exactly how you do it, I think we have all the knobs right now, probably.
I agree.
If we don't,
the problem is going to be the coexistence and just making sure that we're doing everything we fulfill that use case in the way that people would expect it to be safe, So I think that exclude namespaces is probably the wrong way. We should probably have an include instead. But stuff like that, we need to get.
Well, let's think about it.
But one caution with the upgrade, though, is it's going to be very difficult to figure out a good test for the upgrade one. The fresh install, I think we have a pretty good plan for how we're going to test Istio and the CNI coexistence, but I don't think we could come up with a good plan for how to test an upgrade right now.
You have to look at pods. For instance, if you enable CNI on a particular node, right, that already has some pods.
It's more about the infra that would be needed. It's not so much I couldn't come up with a procedure, but I don't think the infra we would need. I think we need a lot of infra changes in how we do tests to kind of for it to be meaningful.
Maybe not. Maybe we can just keep the current infra, the current test. Just make sure CNI is also installed along, with the option to exclude and include namespaces. It will be perfect. I mean, because kind of upgrade scenario is just like, you have a cluster installed, and then you install the CNI plugin and run the test again.
Yeah, maybe we'll look at. I haven't looked much at any of the upgrade tests, so maybe there is a procedure, Costin.
There is one test that is just starting to be automated, and so it's far from perfect. But
yeah, that's what I'm worried about. Trying to hook into that upgrade test might be a challenge.
I propose we take this offline. Okay. So I think for 1.1, if we can ship with the fresh install and everything works fine, we already have like some incremental value, big value, I should say.
Yeah.
And then we can focus on upgrades and have more meetings and discuss, right? Because otherwise we'll be probably going in circle about the upgrades. We also need to talk about the end-to-end strategy here, team. And we're it's 10:31. I want to give some time to the Sidecar lifecycle management. So let's try to make some
headway on that. Yeah. So the overall strategy right now for what we're going with for end-to-end testing is similar to just using the end-to-end tests in Istio, and we started off with the Circle CI end-to-end simple and trying to get that to run, but we quickly realized that in the Circle CI image, making Minikube work with CNI reliably is difficult, partly because of compatibility issues with the Circle CI Ubuntu version that they support and Kubernetes 110. So I think we're not really loving that approach. So it seems more appropriate to go with, since CNI is kind of central to a Kubernetes production infrastructure sort of test requirement. I think we would want to go with a PROW test.
Okay.
So the blocker there for PROW would be that in GKE we need the clusters to be created with network policy enabled. So I've opened the issue against test infra for the end-to-end PROW clusters to get network policy enabled. What that does is it just enables Calico as a CNI plugin instead of KubeNet, and then that allows us as the Istio CNI to add the plugin to the chain. So if we can get that going, then we can just add a new PROW job so we want to add a PROW job in that's triggered by Istio that test with CNI, and then also a PROW job that's from the triggered by changes to the Istio CNI repo. So that's the strategy.
So
yeah,
go ahead, John.
I was just going to add to, so we'll have one job in each trigger from each repo, probably pointing to the latest nightly from the other one as the fixed tag associated with the PR under test. So for example, if we're testing a PR in Istio, then we have to pick a specific label and tag from CNI. So most likely we'll do latest nightly, or we could choose another one.
That will work. I'm wondering if we are not going back to the early days of Istio, where we had multiple repositories and dependencies between them and all the mess up. Maybe an alternative would be to modify a bit the build script to fetch that thing and just do a git checkout on both repositories and be done with
it. We could do that. It just seems safer. It seems safer to do it from a fixed tag, so that the person PR doesn't.
Okay, let's get started with that, and then we can iterate.
Yeah, so we'll do that. Which image we choose, which version we choose, will be
nightly
evolving, right? So we'll eventually, hopefully, have, like Istio would only use quote unquote release candidates from Istio CNI and vice versa. So that things that we know pass.
One data point is that Mandar and the performance working group are in the process of setting up infrastructure for the long-running kind of stability performance tests, and those involve some clusters that are manually configured, so they can have the network plugin enabled, and periodically, I mean daily or whatever, they will upgrade Istio and can have. So basically, it's kind of a test where every night they pull the images that were built that night, and they have permanent load, and they verify that the rollout and everything else doesn't result in 503s and all the other stuff and the performance doesn't regress. So I think that may also be a good opportunity to test this CNI. So if every night we pull the CNI plugin into those clusters.
Yeah, that sounds like a good idea.
Especially long term, since we expect in next version to have also an upgrade of Envoy, part of this CNI, and having the sidecar controlled by the CNI plugin. Mm-hmm. That would be a perfect, maybe a better way to test the CNI plugin in this infrastructure than I don't know, up to you.
Yeah, I mean, so I was just checking, but it looks like the Docker and Docker stuff works with kubeadm on Circle. There's a config.
I don't think it's using CNI so well.
But they're enabling Flannel, Calico, or...
Yeah, well, we can look at that as well.
Is there doc on setting up DIND on Circle CI? I haven't seen it.
I just did a GitHub search to try and... Because I know Miranda spent a lot of time looking at this.
Okay.
Yeah.
Would that be like in the Kubernetes... SIG or something I can look at?
Well, I found their Circle CI config, so that's probably a starting point. But yeah, there's probably some dialogue about it somewhere.
But maybe a combination between the two, the long-running test and Circle, because Circle is still slightly different from the setup on.
No, I mean, I absolutely want to run on both, but I think if we're having trouble with Minikube, we can look at Kind.
Oh, I see. Yes, to get rid of Minikube and switch to
It's the
kubeadmin
same
on
thing.
Circle. Yeah, that would be nice. But that's kind of
Yeah, that's what it looks like here.
independent of CNI.
We were also having trouble with Circle CI, I think, because the CNI, the ecosystem settings for Circle were less than Istio. So that was also an issue for us to try to make progress on that.
Yeah.
I think we pay for Circle CI, so maybe we can get also some support from them.
No, we have support, but it's not.
We moved it, so that's not a problem. But we were way over budget on the ecosystem on Circle CI. It kept warning.
Oh, yeah. So they use VM mode. They don't use Docker mode.
Yeah, VM mode, of course. Yeah, that's what we use for all the
That's
tests.
fine. So then that should work.
Yeah, Docker is only used for build and unit test, and then VM mode is used for everything else. Yeah.
Because GKE is using Kind now, and I think they do CNI tests with it.
Well, we can look at it. I can do some research.
Okay.
Okay, so Tim, do you still need something from the GK with network policy, or you have this solved out?
No, Andy needs to enable it on.
If you guys,
Andy? Okay, yes. So let me
Andy or Sebastian,
an action item for Andy.
And I can check with Mandar to make sure that the load test clusters have network policy enabled anyway, and update my clusters as well.
Okay, good. I think that's it for the CNI. Do we have anything more? That's urgent.
Well, so yeah, the other thing I just wanted to brief folks on, I don't know if they've seen, but so Robert triaged and fixed an issue, and or he's got a proposed fix for an Iptables locking issue that he's been hitting mostly in his setup. That because we're running in the CNI, we're in the same PID lock space as the kube proxy on the host. Wow. So we're kind of competing. Trying to find my video.
That's very interesting. So it was locking Iptables. That's not easy to do.
Yeah. So if you look at the issue and the proposed fix,
take a look. I think Robert is here, so he's trying to say something.
So I can just make a little explanation here. Basically, the kube proxy mount the wrong Iptables.lock into its space. And since CNI is running as a host process, and basically they are competing for the lock.
Oh.
Right. So, but
they're altering Iptables in different network namespaces. Is that right?
Right. Right. But in terms of where the executable is run, and they are basically running in the same storage space, and they are basically using the same log file. Because we are running the CNI in the host namespace, and the POS content, we cannot use POS containers namespace to execute the Iptables because it's not available out there. Iptables tools not available in the POS container. We don't have this problem because we are running the Iptables script in a unique container. So basically, that environment is pretty much isolated, and so it's using its own Xtable lock. But we can do. I put in a fix. I think. I mean, for now, it's working. Is adding a retry logic,
and it's the same type of logic you've seen in other CNIs, right?
It's same type of logic, not the CNI. You mean same type of logic to do Iptables, or
no? You've seen the same type of retry logic.
It's basically the same retry logic used by the Iptables tool itself. Yeah, but just like we don't have the options if we're using older release, we don't have that options like wait or wait interval, those options. So just to be safe, we just add a retry logic in the shell script ourselves, and it should be working.
Okay.
The problem is intermittent, just depending on the timing, kube proxy, populating the iptables on the host, and
which brings back the stability tests where again pods are created, destroyed, and a lot of changes are happening, which will hopefully catch this if it happens again. So
yeah. So on my test is all it happens most of the time, but not all the time. I mean that error.
It's alpha.
Is there a reason that we can't use like nsenter here?
And we are using nsenter. So the nsenter will enter the network namespace. Right. But
is there a reason that we can't also enter the PID namespace so that we have a different lock?
So what PID interface? What PID namespace we can enter? We cannot enter any. We cannot choose any PID interface and just enter that PID interface. I was trying to enter to enter the pass. That's a pass container, right? So I'm trying to enter that namespace, but iptable tools is not available out there.
No, but I mean, isn't it possible to use a binary from like your local mount namespace, but still enter a different PID namespace when you execute it? So like a PID namespace is different than a mount namespace.
Yeah, so we can I'm not sure we can create a storage namespace and enter there, and that storage namespace has iptables availability over there. The other way to do this is to run this inside a container. Should be fast as well.
Let's discuss it on the issue, because the issue is there, and apparently there are many ideas.
There is also a suggestion in the chat, so why not also try iptable -w command? So there might be other solutions to this, but I think the best thing is that we discovered this bug.
Or sleep and try. I mean, let's discuss it as the issue.
Some approach to it. Yeah, that's like it's a great find. Yes.
Yes. So can I ask a quick question? Does this only happen with CNI because the way it's on different namespace? Okay, thank you.
I think the follow-up question is, does it happen with other CNI plugins that probably use iptables as well? And I mean, I don't think it's specific to how we use iptables. There are probably other CNIs that are adding.
Yeah, I mean, Calico uses iptables, and we've had to deal with this locking issue.
In earlier days, Kubernetes had the same issue with kube proxy.
So Spike, it would be great if you could comment into the issue and bring your experience. That would be appreciated.
But it looks like we have the right right minds.
Okay, so let's try to move on to the next one. It's still you, Robert, and somebody added one more topic, which I think we'll get. Okay, I think it will be deferred for next Thursday if we have time. But or if not,
Do you want to take over?
I can share my
SDS and CNI. Okay. Yeah, that I think will have to happen next time.
That should be simple.
So Robert, please go ahead and present your document.
Yeah, he's going to try to share from his PC and talk to my PC. So this might be an interesting.
We hear you very well for now. So as long as he mutes his laptop, his own laptop, it should work.
My laptop has some issues with the speaker. 3 weeks ago, we had a little demo on this Sidecar Lifecycle management. We call it loosely coupled Sidecar. And afterwards, we volunteered to come up with some requirements and, potential implementations for it. If you look at so this is the document I wrote up, and there are some reviews already, comments already. Basically, I derived the requirements from Louis Sidecar Istio documentation. I think in that document, although it talks about the issues, but it pretty much laid out the requirements for this independent, whatever you name it, the Sidecar lifecycle management outside the application pod. And I know there are a few attempts already out there to address some or all of the issues that discussed in that document. So in this document, I was trying to, based on whatever already existed out there, I'm trying to, talk about the, what should be considered in the implementation. So in this section, it's the requirements. I'm not sure that this exactly reflects what we want to do for the Sidecar lifecycle management. So anybody is welcome to comment on this, and if I'm missing something in the requirement, or it should be reworded or things like that in that nature. And the next section is talk about the implementation considerations. Basically, it's talking about the implementation in terms of these bullet points. What is used as trigger to create the sidecar, and what is the overall workflow involved in managing the sidecar's lifecycle. And what's going to be in the running environment for the sidecar, and potentially we need some API CLIs to manage them for update, visibility, etc.
All part of the install and operator and whatever we are doing in the install stuff. I mean, to manage updates of the sidecars and.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I have a question about the requirements section. So like a few meetings ago when we discussed CNI, we had an action item, I think we said between you, Tim, and John McDowell, to sort of like come up with a document listing the requirements, right? Yes. Is this the one?
Yeah.
Okay. So then that means like we should all definitely be checking. There were like aspects like the debuggability for the CNI, the resource attribution, all that. So we have to make sure that they are all listed here, even before we jump into how this is going to be implemented, right?
Right, exactly.
Okay. So I think that's also for you, Louis, to review those requirements.
But I think if you look a little further down, Robert really hasn't, proposed a very specific implementation. He's talked about a couple different options, and he has a suggestion. But this really is not, a full implementation design document yet. We're
right.
But I think that we do pretty early on make some assumptions about the implementation, like this section on for the convenience of the following discussions. It's assumed that the sidecar is not going to run in the application pod.
Right.
It's a goal. It's not necessarily a.
Yes, basically, this is talking about that.
Why is it a goal?
For security and upgradeability issues, at least.
So, like that should be in the requirements.
Right. I'm not sure if it's a goal actually.
Well,
so
I'm not sure that it's a goal either. The goal should be security, not the goal should be that it shouldn't be in the pod.
Right.
Maybe that's the way to put it. Yeah.
The first requirement talking about dedicated sidecars, basically, is a per pod sidecar running outside the pod.
So,
hang on.
I mean, we can say.
I think a dedicated sidecar is a one-to-one mapping between sidecars and pods, but that doesn't necessarily mean that it has to be outside the pod.
Yeah, so it might be a good idea actually to split this document into really requirements for Istio. And how those are addressed with the like node proxy or outside of the pod proxy, and with the sidecar proxy separately, right? Because it may be some of these are already addressed by the sidecar proxy option that we have today, and we really promote it and advertise and everything. So it's not such a bad option either.
Well, it's not the most secure option either. So let's try to put it in a ways that doesn't imply the solution. But I think the goal to be able to upgrade the sidecar without requiring a rollout of the application is perfectly valid. And the goal to isolate completely is to secure all the secrets and all the traffic that is intercepted by the sidecar from application is also quite.
Yes, that is clearly a security goal.
And unfortunately, that kind of implies that you cannot.
Not necessarily.
It's okay for there to be options.
Oh,
right?
absolutely.
It's not okay for there to be a limited number of options.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
And there might be like implementation who choose to go ahead with the sidecar option, and they need to understand, what are the caveats.
I mean, that's what we are just saying. We are going to add an option to run without sidecar, not.
Right, but like we will add this, and for a while we will have both of them.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
Until when?
Well,
it's the question.
Well,
maybe forever.
Maybe forever.
Maybe forever, but we need to understand why we are doing that, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like what is it that one option brings and the other doesn't, and vice versa.
Okay, so let's work on the requirements.
But it's a very good start, I think.
Yeah. It's excellent. So, but Robert, if you could please split them into two docs, you'll probably.
So different sections.
Different sections. Okay.
So question, this is John. I mean,
yes.
When you say security, are you trying to secure the sidecar from the application developer and allow it to be managed by the admin? Is that
yes?
Kind of,
yes.
Yeah. Just useful to if you just clarify that so people know that what the domain of security is.
Right. So there are possible deployment options where you either want to do that or you don't want to do that.
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah. So question on the upgradeability, I think it will be also interesting to highlight that, let's say if my booking for product page hasn't changed and the sidecar changes, and now I need to rolling upgrade to pick up the new sidecar change. Now, do you expect the book info product page container to actually be up and down because of the sidecar has been changed, but the Docker image itself for the book info and everything else is unchanged?
Right. So the usability end goal, right, is that no matter what happens with Envoy upgrades, the deployment doesn't get touched, right? That's the ultimate.
Right.
Yeah, but if Kubernetes can hide that sidecar changes for the microservice itself, I mean, it's not going to take the microservice container down. And what's the big issue?
That's the problem, because Kubernetes does not support this for other security reasons. So once you created a pod with a number of containers, you cannot change the image of that containers. It's immutable. So that's one of the current Kubernetes tenets, right?
Well, they have a notion in Kubernetes that they've been discussing for a while called Metapod, which is theoretically designed to support some of these use cases, but one, doesn't exist. Two, is not agreed in the community that it would exist. And three, we don't know when it would exist, if ever.
Right.
And four, it doesn't address the other concern of isolating.
Right, and it only addresses one of those aspects,
yeah.
right? The security requirement is still not necessarily addressed by that, although we are, just so everybody knows, the Google security folks are having a nice, rapid discussion about the isolation characteristics to see what is or is not possible. Everybody agrees that CNI can yield a higher degree of separation than is currently available in Kubernetes, but they have a goal to be able to deliver a higher degree of separation within the existing Kubernetes semantics. It's not clear still if that would even achieve what we want. So,
and long term, things evolve. I mean, if we.
And just to like follow up on like what Lynn said, so it is one of the requirements to have in-place upgrades, right? So to be able to upgrade the Envoy proxy,
it's very desirable. Highly desirable.
It's highly desirable. Like highly, it's a requirement. Okay, it's not nice to have.
We can live without it.
Yeah, but and like not to mention like that will avoid like one extra step that like rolling upgrade step won't be necessary, right? Right now, anybody has to do that. So it's not a perfect user experience.
Right, because all the fixes are whipping out.
Yeah, sorry.
There's also the vice versa case of when you upgrade the applications, what do you upgrade the proxy to? Or do you stop and start the proxy?
If necessary, I mean, if the proxy didn't change maybe you can just restart it or just keep it running.
No, but like with the current model in the sidecar, to upgrade your application, you have to restart the pod.
Yeah,
right.
Pod, of course, you won't need to restart the proxy.
Is a new one you can have.
Well, that's the decoupled one, because now the life cycle of the proxy can outlive the life cycle of any given pod under certain constraints.
Yeah.
Right.
You have it warmed up and ready to go.
Okay.
And by the way,
So because we'll keep a single document to cover both sidecar and I don't know how to call this, node proxy, the other one, or like decoupled proxy.
What is decoupled proxy?
Well, the other option where the proxy is not running as a sidecar, it's loosely coupled, decoupled proxy. How shall we name that?
So the sidecar is no longer an envoy that's injected. Right? It's not a container that's part of the pod, right?
Yeah, but then it's not a sidecar.
It's still a sidecar, but
it's a sidecar like running 2 kilometers.
To be clear, there are two. I mean, it will still be assigned as resource allocation to the sidecar, just to the pod.
Yes.
Or that's a goal.
That's the goal.
I think there is a different thing with where you have a single envoy managed by the node, which is not in a pod. That's the one that I don't think it's on the table right now.
Well, we do have the what is on the table is the case where the envoy is shared
between pods in the same
right. So you can have multiple like envoys running on a node responsible for the pods running on that node. So you would run those as daemon sets,
going
right?
to happen anytime soon. I mean, even the one where the pod is the same trust domain may take a while.
Sure, but like
I know
those things are coming.
Yeah.
We probably need to cover them in the requirements, even if we're not delivering them in the short term.
So how about as part of this document, we set a goal to clearly define the terminology around where is envoy running? Okay, whether it's running in the pod or in the node and the daemon set.
Yeah.
And Tim is saying something on the chat, but I can't see that far. Tim, we need.
Yeah, it's basically clarifying the terminology, because I think some people are confusing being part of the pod spec with running. With one
running in the pod.
Running in the pod, like the CNI starting in a container inside the pod. Net namespace or something like that.
My only concern is to be able to resource allocation only.
Yeah, we can add a section at the beginning for the terminologies.
Yeah, that would be great.
If I can have 30 seconds, since we need to walk out.
We'll be kicked out.
It's 11. No, we need to walk out. It's
you're
protesting.
Okay.
You're not protesting? Oh, sorry.
Okay.
Google is protesting today. So I had a new section on. So basically, I want to if you can take a look, if we can leverage CNI to provision the SDS secret. SDS is a secret discovery service that is coming, and and it's also running per node. And we have all kind of discussions about how we are going to establish trust between the envoy and the node agent that is implementing the SDS. So my proposal is basically just put a UDS socket in each pod as part of CNI to bootstrap the trust between them. Anyway, we'll discuss.
So this is your like pod authentication in Istio CNI.
Yeah,
that's your document.
Yeah, that's my document. Is more complicated than it needs to be because it was reviewed by the security people and they had all kind of comments and I had to. But the bottom line is that should be a relatively small change that I'm trying to propose and looking for feedback. That's it.
Okay, great. So we'll probably cover it more in depth next time. Okay.
Absolutely.
All right. Well, thanks everybody and see you in a week.
Okay, great. Thanks, guys.
Bye.
Bye.